A seismic shockwave has just hit the American auto industry. On June 4, 2025, President Donald Trump's administration doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, from 25 to 50%. This sweeping move hit nearly all of America's trading partners, sending tremors through the global economy. Nowhere are those tremors felt more than in Dearborn, Michigan, home of Ford Motor Company. For Ford, whose identity is forged in steel, the sudden doubling of material costs is a crisis. The new tariffs are expected to add over $100 billion in annual costs for U.S. importers, costs companies like Ford cannot simply absorb. The decision has ignited fierce debate, pitting national security against the realities of a global supply chain. For Ford's workers and their families, the stakes are personal jobs, stability, and the price of the vehicles they rely on. The policy has provoked threats of retaliation from allies and cast a shadow of uncertainty over the global economy. The White House claims the move protects American jobs, but critics warn it could do the opposite. As of June 11, the full impact is only beginning to unfold. Ford must now navigate a treacherous new landscape where the rules of global trade have been rewritten overnight. The company's response will test the resilience of American industry in an era of economic nationalism. The world is watching. Can this legendary automaker weather the storm, or will protectionist policies become the catalyst for its decline? The road ahead is fraught with peril and uncertainty. The fate of Ford and American manufacturing hangs in the balance. To understand Ford's crisis, we must first understand tariffs. A tariff is a tax on imported goods. When the U.S. places a 50% tariff on foreign steel, companies like Ford pay 50% more for that steel. The goal: make imports pricier, encouraging Americans to buy domestic products and protect local jobs. The Trump administration argues tariffs are a necessary response to countries like China flooding the market with cheap subsidized steel. But the reality is more complicated. When Ford pays more for steel, it faces tough choices: absorb the cost and shrink profits, raise vehicle prices and risk losing customers, or cut costs elsewhere, often jobs. Absorb the cost and shrink profits, raise vehicle prices and risk losing customers, or cut costs elsewhere, often jobs. Tariffs may help U.S. steel producers, but they hurt much larger industries that use steel, like automakers. The American Automotive Policy Council warns these tariffs will significantly raise the cost of assembling vehicles in the U.S. This puts Ford, GM, and Stellantis at a disadvantage compared to international rivals not burdened by these costs. The protective shield for one industry becomes a cage for another. Higher costs ripple through the economy, affecting workers, consumers, and the broader market. The logic of tariffs is simple: the consequences are anything but. For Ford, every decision now carries risk. The company must balance survival with competitiveness in a global market. The trade war's central dilemma: who really pays the price? Ford is built on steel and aluminum, materials now at the heart of its crisis. The 50% tariffs have sent the cost of these essential materials soaring, impacting every vehicle Ford builds. Domestic steel prices have risen too, as U.S. producers capitalize on reduced foreign competition. Ford faces higher costs no matter where it sources materials. Industry analysts estimate the new tariffs could add over $1,000 to the price of an average vehicle. For a company with thin profit margins, this is catastrophic. Ford's years of optimizing global supply chains and investing in advanced materials are now liabilities. Shifting suppliers isn't easy. It requires re-engineering, retooling, and new safety tests. The tariffs penalize Ford's long-term investments, creating a crisis at the core of its operations. Every coil of steel, every ingot of aluminum now carries a hefty premium. The cost of Made in America has just gone up, not because of innovation, but because of policy. Ford must adapt quickly or risk falling behind. The financial pressure from tariffs is forcing Ford into tough decisions. The most immediate consequence: jobs are at risk. Rising costs and shrinking profits mean Ford must cut expenses to survive, often by slowing production and laying off workers. The very people tariffs aim to protect are now the most vulnerable. If building a car costs $1,000 more, Ford must raise prices, which could drive customers to cheaper alternatives. Lower sales mean production cuts, which ripple through Ford's supply chain, hurting suppliers and communities. The iconic F-150, built with high-strength aluminum, is now more expensive to produce, turning innovation into a liability. Ford faces a dilemma: absorb costs and lose profit, or pass them to customers and risk losing market share. The cycle is vicious. Higher costs, higher prices, lower sales, job losses. The American Automotive Policy Council warns these tariffs put U.S. automakers at a global disadvantage. Instead of sparking a manufacturing renaissance, the policy risks triggering a downturn. Ford's challenge is no longer just about competing with foreign brands. It's about surviving a policy from its own government. The stakes are existential for Ford and the entire U.S. auto industry. Every decision now is a fight for survival. The future of American manufacturing hangs in the balance. The fallout from tariffs doesn't stop at the U.S. border. Canada, America's top supplier of steel and aluminum, is deeply integrated into the North American auto industry. The doubling of tariffs has been seen by Canadian leaders as an economic attack. Ontario Premier Doug Ford warns that if Canada retaliates by halting shipments, the U.S. auto industry could lose thousands of jobs overnight. The supply chain is a two-way street. Disruption in one direction halts production in the other. Premier Ford argues the real issue is countries like China circumventing trade rules, not Canada. Punishing a key ally, he says, is self-defeating. This sentiment unites Canadian leaders against U.S. policy. For Ford, a disruption in Canadian supply would be devastating. Production could grind to a halt. The threat transforms the problem from higher costs to existential survival. The once efficient cross-border trade system is now a dangerous vulnerability. The U.S. risks damaging a crucial alliance in its own industry. The stakes for Ford and the North American auto sector have never been higher. The crisis is no longer just economic, it's geopolitical. The impact of tariffs ripples far beyond Ford's factories. Business investment is slowing as companies hesitate to spend amid uncertainty and rising costs. Oxford Economics predicts a significant drop in U.S. business spending on equipment, hitting future growth. For automakers, this could delay the shift to electric vehicles, letting foreign competitors pull ahead. Consumers feel the pain too. Higher car prices reduce purchasing power and slow overall spending. Lower and middle-income families are hit hardest as affordable transportation slips out of reach. The World Bank has cut its global growth forecast, citing U.S. tariffs and trade tensions. The Congressional Budget Office predicts a drop in U.S. economic output. Most economists agree. Trade wars create a web of negative consequences, slowing prosperity for all. The attempt to protect one industry is causing a fever that threatens the entire economy. The world's reaction to America's tariff hike has been swift and negative. Global leaders warn the move threatens the stability of the post-war trading system. The World Bank's slashed growth forecast signals the perceived damage. The U.S. is now isolated, straining relationships with allies in Europe and Asia. Companies worldwide are scrambling to adapt, and business confidence is plummeting. In Europe, automakers like BMW are already feeling the pinch from related trade disputes. Exporters are rerouting goods through other countries to avoid tariffs, undermining the policy's intent. Legal battles are unfolding in U.S. courts while negotiations with China and Mexico offer glimmers of hope. The world is searching for off-ramps from a full-blown trade war. Yet the core conflict deepens and uncertainty reigns. The global economy is holding its breath. Ford is in crisis mode, exploring every strategy to survive. Cost-cutting is immediate, freezing hiring, reducing budgets, and possibly layoffs. Re-engineering the supply chain is underway, but domestic suppliers are costly and limited. Ford may source more materials from countries with tariff exemptions, but this is complex and slow. The company is lobbying Washington, warning of job losses and rising prices. Ford must balance advocacy with maintaining government relationships. Pricing strategies are critical. Absorb costs on some models, pass them on for others. Shifting focus to vehicles with less steel and aluminum is on the table. Every move is risky, as competitors watch for missteps. Ford's survival depends on agility, innovation, and political savvy. The future for Ford, its workers, and American car buyers is uncertain. Doubling tariffs threatens decades of progress and global integration. Higher production costs mean higher prices, lower demand, and job losses. The standoff with Canada adds a dangerous new dimension: potential supply chain paralysis. The era of affordable American-made vehicles may be ending, not by market forces, but by policy. Ford's struggle is a symbol of the tension between globalism and nationalism. The path forward is treacherous, requiring innovation and a possible rethink of trade policy. The fate of Ford and hundreds of thousands of jobs hangs in the balance. The coming months will determine if the American auto industry can steer through this storm. The world is watching to see if Ford can survive, or if protectionism will drive it off the road.